Yes, welcome back, Leon.
Thank you. I'm here for a few weeks and then I vanish again.
There you go. Beth was just telling us about her upcoming travels too, to Florida and Mexico. So safe travels to Beth. Where are you going, Leon?
We are going to Morocco.
Oh, cool.
In there.
And I am looking forward to, we have a friend whose heritage is Jewish Moroccan.
Oh, good.
And I understand, quite a community there. So
There
I'm
is, yes.
looking forward to that.
Are you going on a tour or?
Yes.
Good.
Yes.
They
You'll
teach
see what-
Judaism. I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
We were told they teach Judaism. There is very little anti-Semitism, surprisingly little. The children are acclimated to Judaism in primary school. The king of Morocco was very welcoming. There were 100 Jews coming in for a trip. He went to greet them. There's a very
Yeah, the king now, I think his father or his grandfather before the 6-Day War might not have been so nice to the Jews, which is why so many Moroccan Jews had to leave. But now, yes, they have diplomatic relations with Israel. You can fly direct from Israel to Morocco. Anyway, you'll see. If you're looking for Jewish things in Morocco, you'll find a lot of it in most of the major cities that you'll be going to. So safe travels in a few weeks.
Thank you.
All right, good to see everybody. And as we're recording this now also, so we left off in chapter 2, the top of page 9.
The prayer.
What's that, Deborah?
The prayer for study.
Yes, thank you. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, shekidshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu la'asok b'divrei Torah.
Amen.
So this chapter, as I said last time, is most of it is the Haftarah for the portion in the book of Numbers about the spies. That portion, Shlach Lecha, has Moses send out 12 scouts into the land of Israel to report back on the condition there. So this is Joshua sending out 2 spies into the city of Jericho for the same reason as the conquest of the land of Israel is about to begin. So we left off with these 2 spies finding refuge in a place in a brothel, essentially, though the English translations and commentaries go out of their way to say it's not necessarily a brothel, it could be an inn, but the word is zonah in describing the woman Rachav, who is risking her life in protecting these 2 spies. So she's already diverted the king's troops who are looking for these spies, because word had gotten out that the spies had there's strangers in town, and she already diverted them while she's hiding them on the roof under stalks of flax. That's where we left off at the end of verse 6. So let's read 7 through 7 through 10. We'll just read page 9. V'ha'anashim radfu achareihem derech hayarden. Excuse me. Al hamabarot v'hasha'ar sagaru acharei ka'asher yatsu harodfim achareihem. V'hema terem yishkavun v'hi alta aleihem al hagag. V'tomer el ha'anashim yadati ki natan Adonai lachem et haaretz v'chi nafla ematchem aleinu v'chi namogu kol yoshvei haaretz mipnechem ki shamanu et asher hovish Adonai et me yamsuf mipnechem b'tzeitchem mimitzrayim v'asher asitem lishnei malchei ha'emori asher be'ever hayarden Lesichon ulaog asher hecheramtem otam. The men, the troops, the Jericho troops, pursued after them by way of the Jordan unto the fords. So the Mabarot. Mabarot in modern Hebrew are the transit camps that Israel set up for the incoming immigrants from Arab countries after 1948. So the first few years, life was pretty difficult for Jewish Arab country immigrants who were put into these Mabarot. So those are transit camps. Here it's translated as fords. So we'll see what Alter says in a minute when we get to the commentaries, but I'm just saying it's difficult to translate this word. And the gate was closed after when they went out to pursue them. The pursuers went after them. So the Hebrew is kind of awkward here, but that's how I'm translating it literally. And before they lay down, she went up to them on the roof. Now, it could also be understood, if you wanted to take it this way, in a sexual connotation, going up on them on the roof, if you wanted to. And I, without embarrassing Bess, I did that for her benefit, because she likes that. So, nothing wrong.
That
with it.
didn't embarrass me, right?
Right, nothing will embarrass you, right? But it just put that out there in the translation that there could be a double entendre meant in the translation. And verse 9, she said to the men, I know, or I have known, that God. Now, this is significant to me, and there's not much commentary here, but there should be. That she calls God by God's name. She doesn't say your God. She says God, Adonai, Yud He Vav He, the holiest name of God. She's invoking that name. Now, would it be the same as a non-Christian invoking Jesus's name as Jesus? Or a non-Muslim saying Allah? I don't know. Is it just a matter of respect, or is it a sign of maybe some belief on her part? Instead of saying that I know that your God did such and such, she just says, I know that God. Okay.
Oh.
Yes.
Where would she have learned the name?
Okay, so let's go on, because she's reminding the people, she's telling the people what she knows Adonai has done. All right, so it's possible through that. But so I know that God, that Adonai, gave you the land. All right, so somehow she's heard that the land of Israel now, or the land of Canaan, as she would refer to it, is supposed to now belong to the Israelites. So I know that Adonai has given the land to you, and that the fear of you has fallen upon us, like we are shaking in our boots because you are about to enter the land now and take over. V'chi namogu kol yoshvei haaretz mipneichem. So namogu, that's a nun mem gimel, is a word that I'm not familiar with. So melt away. Okay, that the inhabitants of the land are melting away before you. And we'll see how Alter translates that word as well. The people of the land, Rachav, the prostitute, is saying, now, prostitutes know a lot of gossip, and if some prostitutes might hear gossip from pretty high up officials who might be clients, so maybe she accurately is sharing the information about the nature of the people of Jericho and what they're feeling. Okay, so we know that the land is given to you. Verse 10, we've heard that about how God dried up the waters of Yam Suf, the Red Sea, from before you when you left Egypt, and what you did to the two Amorite kings on the other side of the Jordan, to Sihon and Og, who you annihilated. All right, so word of what happened, word of what the Torah recounts got to Rachav, and Rachav is summarizing what the Israelites, the major events done for the Israelites, the crossing of the sea and the defeat of Sihon and Og. Okay, so those are major miraculous events that this ragtag group of wandering people, well, first the group of slaves for whom a miracle is wrought in crossing the sea, and then 40 years later, after wandering in the desert with seemingly no training, to be able to defeat these mighty kings, Sihon and Og. So naturally then, Rachav is sharing how much the people of Jericho are afraid of them. And perhaps then that's the reason why she's invoking God's name as a believer, that perhaps if you are a believer of Adonai, then you won't be destroyed. Convert, or perhaps they think, or Rachav is thinking, convert or be killed. Perhaps. Okay, so the commentary is brief here on the page. The way to the Jordan, verse 7, their most likely route to rejoin their camp. That's how she's directing them. The fords, of which there were several linking the two sides of the Jordan. So I'm not so familiar with the Jordan River, but the way the Jordan River is today, you can basically cross the Jordan anywhere, just walking through it. It's not very deep. Perhaps in that time, I would imagine in that time, 3,000 years ago, the Jordan was a wider river and perhaps a deeper river, because now there are dams in Syria, which are the headwaters of the Jordan River that go into the Kinneret. So there's less coming into the Kinneret. And then from the Kinneret, there's also diversion points for agriculture, both in Jordan and in Israel. So that depletes the flow of the Jordan. So before then, 3,000 years ago, I would imagine the Jordan River was a more substantial river, probably like the Patuxent, perhaps, the border between Montgomery and Howard counties. That could be what the Jordan River might have looked like 3,000 years ago, as opposed to, I'm trying to think, the Paint Branch, maybe, and very narrow stream, which the Jordan River looks like today. Okay, the gate was shut to trap them if still in the city. Verse 9. Ehrlich construes the passage, I know because the Lord has given because of you, that the Lord your God, etc. The intervening words are in parentheses. All right, so it's just that the wording is a little bit unusual, so he's just quoting this one scholar and how to translate it differently. We'll see Alter in a moment. Has given the prophetic perfect, describing an action in the future as though it were already accomplished. That is, the land has already been given to you. And then melt away, see Exodus 15:15, right, where that word is used again, namogu. All right, so 7 to 10 in Alter. along the Jordan by the fords. I'm on page 14 in the ancient Israel. This, as Rachav has rightly surmised, would be the most plausible route of pursuit because the men from Jericho are aware that the Israelites are encamped east of the Jordan and assume that the spies will try to reach a ford over which they can cross to return to their people. In verse 9, your terror has fallen upon us, and all the dwellers of the land quail before you. Rachav is directly quoting the Song of the Sea, merely reversing the order of terms in the poem. All the dwellers of Canaan quailed, terror and fear did fall upon them. Her words are a verbatim confirmation of the assertion in the song that the great news of the event at the Sea of Reeds reached the Canaanites and dismayed them. All right, so our commentary in Joshua on page 9 alludes to 15:15 in Exodus. Alter is just elaborating on that and just highlighting the Song of the Sea, and perhaps calling into question also, when was it written? Was it really a prophetic work written at the time of the crossing of the sea, or might it have been written at the time of Joshua when the Israelites were settling, and then just using the same phrasing then to kind of prove that the inhabitants of the land of Israel were quaking before them. So, and then on page 15, what you did to the two Amorite kings, this triumph reported in Numbers 21 at the other end of the story of wilderness wanderings from the victory at the Sea of Reeds, is a recent event, perhaps having occurred in the last few months before the present narrative moment. Right, so we don't know how long it took from the time they got to, from the time they defeated Sihon and Og until they were ready under Joshua and Moses's death to go into the land of Israel. We don't know. We have the whole book of Deuteronomy in between. And how long did that take? If it took, right? If that happened. So we don't know the exact chronology. Was it months? Was it years? We don't know. Okay, so that's Alter on this.
Did we do the 10 from the Joshua book?
Right.
Commentary?
That's right. Thank you. For we have heard, etc. Rabbi Shimon ben Elazar said, when Israel fulfills the will of the omnipresent, his name is magnified in the world, as it is said, for we have heard, etc. But when Israel does not do his will, his name is profaned in the world, as it is said, and when they came unto the nations whither they came, they profaned my holy name, in that men said of them, these are the people of the Lord, and are gone forth out of his land. All right, so the rabbinic commentary just, and I think we're going to see this as a theme throughout Joshua. If we follow God's will, then God works for us and helps us settle the land of Israel. If we don't follow God's will, then we're exiled from the land and punished. So Joshua is read both in history as a time in which the people were still following God's will and therefore successful in the land, and also used as a lesson for Jews today who are living in the diaspora or the exile. If only we could have been, if only today we can follow God's will as we followed it in the time of Joshua. Right? So but of course the question is, how, to what extent are we supposed to follow God's will? Is being a Reformed Jew enough to follow God's will? Or do we have to be ultra-Orthodox Hasidim in order to follow God's will, right? So that's a debate within the Jewish community, of course, and it's a debate in the state of Israel today in the nature of Israeli government. But enough politics. It's just this, for religious commentary on the book, this is the idea behind the book of Joshua, and also all the later books of the Bible after the Torah. We hear the Bible is giving us a blueprint on how to behave and how to behave religiously, how to behave as a people communally, and setting up a society. And our condition today is a result of not living up to what we're supposed to do. Okay, verses 11 through 15. Vanishma vayimas levavenu, velo kama od ruach beish mipnechem, ki Adonai Elohechem, hu Elohim bashamayim mima'al ve'al haaretz mitachat. Ve'ata hishavuna li ba'Adonai, ki asiti imachem chesed, va'asitem gam atem im beit avi chesed unetatem li ot emet. V'hachayitem et avi ve'et imi ve'et achai ve'et ach votai. And just a little asterisk there, we're supposed to read it ach yotai, that is the more correct way to say it. Ve'et kol asher lahem vehitzaltem et nafshotenu mimavet. Vayomru la ha'anashim nafshenu tachtechem lamut, ki im lo tagidu et devarenu zeh, v'haya betet Adonai lanu et haaretz, v'asinu imach chesed ve'emet. V'toridem b'chevel ba'ad hachalom, ki veta bekir hachoma, uvachoma hi yoshavet. And we heard, she's continuing with what they had heard about God doing for the people of Israel, Exodus from Egypt, Sichon and Og. We heard, and our hearts melted. And there was not enough spirit to rise up in a person before you. In other words, we haven't been able to rally the troops because everyone's afraid of fighting you. Ki Adonai Elohechem, because Adonai, your God, is God in the heaven above and on the land below. All right, so a phrase that we use commonly in the prayer book is used by Rachav, the prostitute. All right, so that I think that's telling and important, that it's not just, saintly people who have the right to invoke God's name. Even prostitutes can invoke God's name in a way that we would consider liturgical. Adonai hu Elohim bashamayim mima'al ve'al haaretz mitachat, and I would add ein od. There is no other. That's a common ending to that phrase that we find in the prayer book. Okay, so not only is she invoking God's name back in verse 9, but she's I would say a convert to Judaism. Like there's no formal conversion process yet in Israelite history, but she's invoking God as God of the heavens and God on earth below, and saying, affirming that is the one Adonai. And now, verse 12, please swear to me in God's name that I have done for you compassionately or acted loyally. So, or it says here, dealt kindly with you. Chesed is compassion, at least in rabbinic and modern Hebrew. So kindly, it's another synonym for it. So chesed, I have dealt with you chesed. But it's interesting. We're reading this today. The parsha tomorrow has that we're going to read tomorrow. Vayechi has Jacob asking Joseph to deal with him with chesed and emet, to fulfill a promise to once Jacob dies, to bring him back to Israel, to the burial place in Hebron to bury. So Jacob asks Joseph to deal with him in chesed ve'emet. Okay, yes, Barry.
So I'm just curious about the Canaanite gods. I know what we've read so far, each tribe, I mean, there was I guess it was the Midianites who worshiped Baal, the god of El, which the Hebrews incorporated into the name of God for the Israelites. And I know they had, the figurines that, that I get, was it Rebecca that had in her saddlebags?
Right.
Anyway, and I know Israelites had those as well.
Yeah.
But is there a lot of evidence that the Canaanites worshipped multiple gods? And I'm asking that in reference to that phrase, yours is the God in heaven and also on earth, i.e., one God.
Yeah, so I don't know if this is a matter of, well, I already have a bunch of gods. What's the harm in adding another god to my list of gods that I believe in? I don't know. Or is she rejecting the Canaanite gods and accepting only the Israelite God? So I don't know. I do know the Canaanites had a bunch of gods, just as every biblical society, every nation at the time of the Bible had their own gods. Some of them were the same gods for the same things, just called by different names. So the Egyptian gods are different than the Canaanite gods, but essentially you have a god of fertility, you have a god of the crops, the god of the sun, the god of the moon, that kind of thing. So I don't know enough to know whether Adonai was added to the Canaanite pantheon or Canaanite. I do know that Israelite homes, what archaeologists have seemed to have proven to be Israelite homes, have found in them Canaanite figurines. So is certainly the Bible records, if you can use Bible as history, the Bible records Israelites adopting Canaanite gods, and archaeology proves it. So, but I don't know the reverse, whether Canaanites adopted like Rahav here. So it's a question I don't know. It's an interesting question. So she asked.
I just know that in the Christian theology there are saints for. I mean, there's a saint for travel. There's a saint for And I sometimes think that it might just be words that we're using. Like because you've said that in Christian theology there's one God, and even the Trinity still goes back to the one God. But people do worship saints. They honor saints, and I wonder.
I think they're honoring the saints, not worshiping the saints. And I think that perhaps Christianity, and this is not a dig at Christianity, because I think Judaism to some extent does the same thing, but to a lesser extent, to accommodate for the human need to have a concrete image of what we are worshiping, right? In other words, I think most people, let's speak for myself, that when astrophysicists talk about the galaxy and the universe, or if mathematicians talk about numbers, they talk about it, I see it, they talk about it in a way that my mind cannot grasp. I just don't understand the language that they're using and the image that they are trying to project through their numbers or through their astrophysics equations and whatnot, right? In other words, you have to have a particular mindset to be able to understand and visualize what astrophysicists and string theory mathematicians are picturing in their minds. So I would say the same is about religion, that different people have different ways of imagining what belief in God means and what God, the abstract idea of a one God, means. And I think the rabbis knew that it was difficult for people to believe in a God without some kind of representation of that God. So that for us, words provide the representation, right? There are 70 names of God. So God as ruler, God as healer. So different images come to mind when we refer to God in that way. So that's, and the also allowing artwork in synagogue is also a compromise when the Ten Commandments says not to have a graven image. Clearly the mosaic floors of synagogues had graven images on the floor. So, you know, it's is it no graven images at all, or just no graven images of God, but you can have other artwork there. So, you know, the artwork in the synagogue plus the words in the prayer book are our way of trying to visualize what God is, as opposed to Christianity that goes one step further by having these intermediaries to help the average Christian worship God. All right, so it's just one more step away from Judaism. So we don't have the intermediaries. However, there are many Sephardic Jews from Arab countries who do worship the ancient rabbis in a way that is similar to Christians worshiping saints. Okay, and again, I'm not saying worshiping. I'm saying going to a grave of a rabbi in order to feel that rabbi's presence and feel blessed by that rabbi. So, or to go to Rachel's tomb and in Bethlehem, just outside of Bethlehem, and have a red string wrapped around your wrist if you are an infertile woman, to try to feel Rachel's presence and be blessed with fertility. Okay, so it's no different than having a St. Christopher medal hanging from your rear view mirror in your car to protect you while you're traveling, or to have a Hamsa, you know, the hand figurine hanging from your rear view mirror to protect you in travel, or to wear a mezuzah or a Hamsa, right? So it's very, very similar, and the knowledgeable Jew will know that that's just a means to an end of worshiping God. Okay, so that's, but for the outsider looking in, it certainly looks like it could be idol worship. Yeah, Marlene, what were you gonna say?
So two things. So also, isn't it also like kind of, I don't want to say borderline, but I mean the, you know, Ashkenazim Jews, like, don't they also almost, they honor, or you know, the Rabbi Schneerson? I mean, that's a very fervent, you know, honor. They go to his grave. They're just always talking about him, right? So
Yes,
that's a different category.
yes, I agree with you. So non-Lubavitch Jews, especially non-Lubavitch Hasidic Jews, castigate the Lubavitch for their reverence of the Rebbe and their belief that the Rebbe was the Messiah. So, you know, you have billboards around Israel. Actually, did I see this? We were in New York last week visiting family. I think there are a couple of intersections where we were. Where was it, in Queens or was it in Manhattan? There was the Rebbe's. There were posters of the Rebbe at the intersection saying the Mashiach is here. So, but mostly you find it in Israel. The Mashiach is here with the picture of the Rebbe. So, yeah.
Brooklyn?
I don't understand the Lubavitch and how they can believe that and still consider themselves mainstream Jews, but that's politics, denominational politics that I don't know enough about. Yes, Lori.
Yeah, I thought that there was a split within that movement. Not everybody believes it, just a portion.
Yeah, I guess for those who are sociologists who study the Lubavitch, the fact that there isn't a Rebbe after the Rebbe who died, right? In most Hasidic dynasties, there's another Rebbe who takes over after the Rebbe dies. It happens in Satmar, it happens in Bratslav, all the Hasidic dynasties. When the Rebbe when the Rebbe of that Hasidic dynasty dies, there's another one who takes his place. There hasn't been one in Lubavitch, but that's because the Lubavitch line is that Rebbe Schneerson was the Messiah. So how do you have another Rebbe to replace that? It's like you would deny that Rebbe was the Messiah. But again, I'm not Lubavitch, so I can't speak to all of that. And anyway, I'm not a fan of the Lubavitch, so I have really not much interest in that. Marlene, did you want to follow up?
Yeah, one more thing, just on a lighter note. So speaking to the, this is comic, Kathleen Madigan, and she speaks exactly on the intermediaries for, the religion. So, I mean, if you just wanted to listen to it, like the saints, just saying, because, it's just very funny, just saying you can't go directly to God, even God's there, he's very busy. So you go to this saint and that saint. It's very funny, but that's exactly what she's talking about.
Right. So, yeah. And again, to an outsider, it sounds funny. It's like watching the Book of Mormon on the stage, right? If you're an outsider, it's not just a very, very strong satire of Mormonism. It's also a strong satire of religion in general. All right, it's one thing to laugh at the Mormon and as a Jew to kind of think, really, people buy into how Mormon version of Christianity started by Joe Smith finding these tablets of gold in his backyard in upstate New York? Okay, sounds crazy, but is it any crazier to believe that Moses received the Torah from God at Mount Sinai? Okay, so it's a critique of religion in general. So I always say, you can't prove to me that religion is right or wrong. So, or that God exists or doesn't exist. Say that. You can't prove one way or the other. It's a matter of taking a leap of faith. So most people, so you either take the leap of faith or you don't. Okay, so that's just, and if you do, then you agree with the rules that the particular religion or the guidelines that the particular religion set up for how to believe in God, why to believe in God, et cetera, et cetera. Yes, Barry.
Okay, so now I have three things.
Okay.
There's a great Philip Roth story in his first collection. I think it was called Defender of the Faith, where the little boy in Hebrew school, is questions. The rabbi is talking about the virgin birth and how this is so silly and you can't have a virgin birth. And he says, well, wait a minute, don't we believe in splitting the Red Sea? I mean,
right.
So there's, I mean, that, it's a great story if no one's read it. My question though earlier was really about the Canaanites, and that, I mean, because you sort of flipped the answer a little bit. I was actually asking if it's possible that the Canaanites had those figurines were actually representations of one God. I mean, I know that.
Oh, no, they're not.
Okay, so absolutely. Okay. And then the last thing was relative to the sense of the Messiah. My understanding was that was a later part of Judaism. I mean, it's certainly not in the 5 books.
Right. It's rabbinic.
Yeah, it was rabbinic, and that.
Oh, no. It's in the prophets. I'm sorry. It's in the prophets.
It's in the prophets.
Isaiah, Jeremiah talk about.
Okay, which was about the time of Christianity,
No. Isaiah, Jeremiah, they're 500, 700 years before
Okay,
before
easily
Jesus.
before.
Oh,
And
yeah.
but wasn't I guess I heard somewhere that idea of a Messiah was as a king of Israel who would unite
Yes.
Israel and unite
Yes.
Judaism, and
Yes.
not necessarily as a god like what
Oh,
the
no,
Messiah.
no, God. It's just that it's the descendant of the Davidic dynasty,
Right?
and which is why the followers of Jesus are all Jewish. Jesus was Jewish. If they're claiming that Jesus is the Messiah, then they have to provide the genealogy of how Jesus stems from King David himself. So in one of the Gospels, there's a genealogy listing all of the men from King David down to Joseph and Mary and Jesus. So, so the Bible says the Messiah is Mashiach ben David, Messiah, son of David. That's the and the Mashiach, like you said, is a king who will ride on a white donkey, being escorted by Elijah the prophet into the city of Jerusalem to herald the reestablishment of the kingdom of Israel in the land of Israel. And it will be a time, as Isaiah puts it, of great peace, in which there will no longer be animals hunting other animals. Right? The lion will lie down with the lamb. So that's what the age of the Messiah will be like. And other prophets talk about all will come to worship, like the temple will be rebuilt, and all from around the world will come to worship the one God in the temple in Jerusalem. So that's the biblical vision of the Messianic era. So yeah, so I don't know in the Lubavitch world whether they've traced Schneerson's genealogy back to King David, but I'm sure they have. Okay, so let's go on with the translation. Yes, go ahead.
Through Joseph or through Mary?
Joseph, that's the father's line, right? All the men leading up to Jesus.
So then they're saying Joseph was his father.
Yeah, but God, yes.
Okay,
Okay, yeah, all right. You point well taken, and I'm not a Christian theologian, so I can't answer that question. Okay.
Okay.
So ask your local priest how they understand that particular gospel. I don't remember which one that has the genealogy there. Okay, so right, what's the purpose of the genealogy if Jesus is the Son of God?
Yeah, but there was also the
ahead.
idea that in biblical Hebrew that it actually doesn't mean a virgin birth; it means a young.
Yeah, well, that's okay. That's also trying to prove Jesus back from Isaiah's words, right? So there's the last chapters of Isaiah are called the suffering servant chapters, and with a vision of the new king arising from a well, depends how you translate the word, from a young woman's, a king will arise from this young woman. So if you want to translate young woman there as virgin, well, you could, but you don't necessarily have to translate it that way. But if you want to prove from the Jewish Bible that it foretold the birth of Jesus, okay, Gesundheit, you can do that if you want to. But you could also Jewishly, it's about, and it's like if Jews for Jesus, that's part of their material that they hand out is those sections from Isaiah that proves that hey, our Bible proves that Jesus is foretold. So that's why Jews should be believing in Jesus. Okay, you can interpret it that way if you want. I choose not to. Yes.
Doesn't it say someplace in the Christian portion that she knew not a man? Or no man?
I don't know. I don't know
Doesn't some,
I don't know that Bible well enough.
I'm obviously
Does
not.
not ring a bell. Right, so, okay, again, I'm just saying that however you want to read it, you can find a basis for your interpretation in it. Okay, so I'm not saying that the Christian reading of Isaiah is wrong. I'm just saying it's not my interpretation. So, right, they also interpret Isaac, Abraham and Isaac on Mount Moriah, and this is based on Jewish sources too, that Abraham actually went through with it, and then the miracle was that God brought Isaac back to life. So there is midrash about that the angel didn't stop Abraham's hand. Abraham actually killed his son, and then God brought Isaac back to life. And so that for Christians, that's proof that Jesus was brought back to life too. That wasn't the first time. God did it for Isaac. Well, God did it for Jesus too.
And Lazarus, okay,
Okay, well, yes, but I'm just saying in terms of Jesus.
right. Okay, Luke has her saying when she's told she's going to give birth, says, how can this be since I have not been intimate with a man? And another translation says, how shall this be seeing I know not a man? And then the angel says that it's going to be the Holy Ghost is going to do it.
Right. Yes. So, it was written in Greek, and then translated into Latin and then translated into English. So, when you translate that many times, it's you don't know what the original words were. I guess there is, I don't know. I'm sure Christian scholars have like their original text in Greek of the book of Luke, or as close to the original as it is. And then there could be a scholarly translation of all those books. I think they were all written in Greek.
Not
And again, the
Aramean?
Greek, I think they were written in Greek, but translated orally from the Aramaic into Greek. I think that's how it worked. So then there's a problem too, from the Aramaic into the Greek. But again, you do more research on that. There's I know that there's a language problem in the Christian Bible. Yes, Bess? You're muted. I can't hear you.
No, I know. Greek. It says Greek. It was written in.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Right. But I think it originally was Aramaic because they spoke in Aramaic. So, but then it was written down again, I don't know when they're written. The earliest of all the Gospels is 50 years after Jesus lived. So you have that too. That you have, none of them are written concurrently with Jesus's time. Okay, so verse 12, we're in the middle of verse 12 translating it. Do with me kindly, and you should do with the house of my father kindly, and give me a sign of truth, or a true token, it says in English, but give me a sign that you're going to fulfill this vow, this oath with me. What is it? V'hachayitem, keep alive my father and my mother and my brothers and my sisters and all that is theirs, and save them, and you should save their bodies. So nefesh in modern Hebrew is soul, but it's bodies, or life in general, and save their lives, save our lives, nafshotenu, our lives from death. Right, so that's what the oath is that she wants these two guys to take. That I'll be protected as well as my parents, my brothers and sisters, and their families. And the men said to her, our lives are in place of yours to die. In other words, If it wasn't for you, we'd be dead. Im lo tagidu et devarenu zeh. If you tell our dealings here, in other words, if you report what's going on, we'll be dead. V'haya b'teit Adonai lanu et haaretz. And so when God gives us the land, we will do for you chesed ve'emet.
Is
All
it,
right? Yes, go ahead.
is it significant that she asks for her father, mother, sisters, brothers, but not herself?
I think she's including herself in this, because she says, and all that is theirs. So I think all that is theirs is her. If she's asking for her parents and her brother and sister, she's included, but she's not specifically saying herself. Right.
I thought it meant don't take their stuff, possessions.
Well, save alive, verse 13 says here, save alive my father, mother,
Now, all that they have
and deliver our lives from death.
and all that they have.
Right, so that means they're children. That's how I understand it, they're children. So it could be their property, but I think it means their children. So it's, without saying my nieces and nephews, my cousins, she's saying, she's just saying all that they have. So Vasinu imach chesed ve'emet, and we'll do with you compassionately and truthfully. Okay. But Taridem, then she let them out. She lowered them with a rope by way of the window, because her house was in the wall, in the city wall. The Kir HaChoma, it's like the edge of the wall. Uva Choma hi yoshavet, and she's living in the wall. So I don't know what that means, how to live in the wall. Was there, now sometimes it's possible that a wall of a city could be a double wall, and there could be space in between, and perhaps people living in the space between. So there are two walls, and the two walls together could be one wall. It's possible city walls were built that way, and therefore in the space between the walls, people could live there. I don't know, but I think that's how we could understand this. Okay, so let's look at the commentary on the bottom of 10. He is God, etc. See Deuteronomy 4:39. Jethro, who had worshipped idols, said, "Now I know that the Lord is greater than all gods," from Exodus 18, thus ascribing reality to them. Naaman went further and declared, "Behold, now I know that there is no God in all the earth but in Israel," from 2 Kings 5. So he was the general from the Assyrian army who there's a story there. It's the Haftarah for either Tazria or Metzora about the lepers, the 4 lepers who are outside the town, and the sound of them approaching the Assyrian camp sounded like a great army approaching, and the Syrians retreated. So that's the reference there to Naaman. So in other words, she's not the only non-Jew, non-Israelite, claiming great power to Adonai. Rachav, however, went still further, asserting he is God in heaven above and on earth beneath. So the Mechilta, the one collection of Midrash on the book of Exodus, is saying that Rachav is greater than all these other non-Israelites, because it's as if she is an Israelite herself and how she is proclaiming faith in God. The unity and omnipotence of God were one of the fundamental tenets impressed upon the children of Israel in the wilderness. Strange though it must have appeared in those days, it may well have percolated to other peoples and gained credence from some individuals among them. So maybe the monotheistic faith of the Israelites spread to other societies around them. Our life for yours, that is, should our fellow Israelites break the undertaking we give you, then our own lives will be forfeit. So that's what that means. Our lives are your sake. That, in other words, we will guarantee that our fellow Israelites will do you no harm. This our business, literally this our word, namely the sign we agree upon that Rachav's house should be distinguished by a scarlet thread in the window because it might be used by others. All right, that's coming up, that they put the scarlet thread there as a sign not to destroy this house. Upon the side of the wall, literally in the wall, this explains how they escaped in spite of the locking of the gates. The wall of her house was a continuation of the city wall. Again, I'm not sure how to picture that, but it's close to the wall. So let's just read altar, and then we have to end for today. Page 15. For the Lord your God, he is God in the heavens above and the earth below. Rachav is cast as a good monotheist, persuaded of the Lord's supreme sovereignty, as the Israelites are expected to be by his dramatic intervention in history. Our lives in your stead to die, this drastic offer expresses their recognition of the awesome solemnity of the vow they are taking. For her house was in the outer wall. Many fortified cities in the region had a double wall. Oh, say, I didn't read this ahead of time. And most interpreters understand the seemingly redundant Kir HaChoma, wall of the wall, as an indication of the outer wall. In this way, being lowered by a rope from her window enables them to get out of the city, even though the gate is locked. Okay. All right, we'll stop here for today. We'll continue next Friday, and hope everybody has a Shabbat Shalom. Take care, everybody.
Okay,
Shabbat
thank
shalom.
you.
Shabbat
Shabbat shalom.
Good Shabbos, good Shabbos.